Good afternoon. Welcome to the introduction to the Data Planet repository. We have a very quick slideshow that we're going to go through, and then we'll spend most of the time in the product. Data Planet is a statistical aggregation tool. We pull data from all types of sources, public and private, domestic and international. We buy a lot of data. We partner with organizations to redistribute data, and we use a lot of open source data. And that data comes to us in all types of shapes and sizes and formats. And we transform that data into a common structure. And that has several advantages for us. One, it allows us to give the same user experience across all the data that we publish. So looking at data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics versus the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank all looks the same regardless of the publisher. The other advantage is that it allows us to overlay data, to look at trends in crime versus education versus economic and socioeconomic data. It's simply a click away, and we'll do some examples of that. Once we transform the data, we add our metadata to it. The metadata describes the publisher, the database, the data set, the periodicity of the data, and it aids us tremendously in the searching. I think one thing you'll walk away from today is that there's an enormous amount of data here, and the way that we make the data easy to find is through our search technology, which is driven a lot by the metadata that we add. The result is we generate over 4.3 billion data sets that are viewed as trends, maps, rankings, and pie charts. The data is fully citable, it's current. Behind any chart, you can immediately click to see the data behind the chart. The data is fully documented. We export to other software. We talk a lot here about being able to fit into the research workflow. So even though we have some statistical capabilities or some GIS capabilities, we really don't do a lot of the things that, say, a SAS or an SPS will do. But we want to make it easy to get our data into those products. So we try to make it easy as possible. We get it to statistical products, to delimited files, to shape files, and the metadata behind the products are exportable to RefWorks and EndNote. We try to add about 4 databases a month, so these numbers are constantly changing, and both based on us adding new data and updating existing data. Literally every time you get into the product, it should be a little larger than the last time. So today we cover about 75 publishers, about 425 databases, about 4.3 billion data sets we can generate from about 25 billion data points, and about 40% of our data is privately licensed or not publicly available on the web, and about 75% of the data is domestic. We sell the Data Planet in modules. About 96% of our data is covered in the datasets basic module. But then when we have products that are, or data products that are very expensive, we may have to segment them out, and we have 3 of those. The first is the Easy Market Planner, and it covers purchasing patterns and demographics at a very granular level. So how many people buy Ford versus Chevy, or eat at McDonald's versus Burger King, and this data will cover at the national level, the state, the census tract, the zip code. So again, it gets very, very granular geographically. Next, we have the worldwide stock market prices and precious metals, and as part of our basic product, we'll give you all of the U.S. equities, but with this product, you can have every symbol on every exchange in every country that trades in the world. And then we have the China Data Center. We partner with the China Data Center from the University of Michigan to publish the China Data Center data, and again, as part of our basic package, we'll give you this data, about 1,500 indicators at a national level, but as a premium, we'll let you drill very, very granularly geographically into this data. And then we've recently introduced our data hosting services. We will ingest third-party data that you purchase, so we will work with the publisher. We'll ride on your license. We'll control access such that we don't violate any clauses in your existing license. Wherever possible, we'll work directly with the publisher to update directly from them. And the advantage of that is it's easy to get this data out to your constituency And it also gives you a way to analyze this data along with all of the other products or data sets that we have in Data Planet. So as long as a user can come into Data Planet and authenticate to see this data, it just looks like another data set to them. If you have a researcher who's creating data as part of their research, we can ingest that data and you can use Data Planet as part of the research process. And again, the advantage is that you are able to use this along with all the other data in the product. We love Libguides. We generate quite a few Libguides. We have Libguides for every state, for most countries, and these are, just very quick ways to get into the product, get into a specific subject area for a specific country or state. We also generate lots of subject-specific Libguides based on customer usage. So, if we see that there's a lot of data, users using economic data, will generate a Libguide on economics. I know we've just done one on renewable energy. We also cover how to use the product in Libguides, so it's very powerful for us. You can visit us at www.dataplanet.com. You can contact us at info@dataplanet.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at DataPlanet. So let's get into the product. This is the Data Planet interface. We are a single screen interface. All the data in the product can be retrieved through this single screen. And so what happens is you select the indicator over here in the indicator panel, and we have a folder that's items that we find interesting in the news. We have key economic indicators, again, just economic data that our users tend to use quite a bit. And a lot of times folks will look at this and say, well, you're an economics database. But really, when you drill into it by subject area, you'll find that it's much, much broader than that. So if I just pick one here, like government and politics, here are all the databases that we cover in government and politics. So we have campaign finance, where we cover every PAC in the country and who's contributing and receiving. We have Department of Defense data. We have all of the government spending data that goes down to the vendor. We have the government employment data, lobbying data, Social Security, taxes, and then we get into election outcomes and voting and registration. So in this one subject area alone, you'll see that it's fairly deep and broad as far as the data that it covers. If we look at the data by source, here are all the sources that we cover. And again, you'll see very broad, diverse coverage. And then we have a new feature called overlays, which I'll explain a little later. So let's dive in and do some quick examples. So here, when you select an indicator, the first thing we'll do is we'll tell you how that data is available. So we've selected airline on-time arrival percentages, and we can see that that data is available by day, month, quarter, and year. We can look at it for the nation, or we can drill in and look at it by airline, and you'll see these boxes appear and disappear based on what you've selected. So here we're looking at it by airline, and we can see a list of all the airlines that are available. We can look at it by state, or I can drill into a state and look at it by airport. And this hierarchical structure here is important because this tells you that you're looking at an airport within a selected state versus this one right here, which will give you all the airports in the country. Or I can drill into an airport and look at it by airline. So here we have American Airlines flying into Birmingham, Alabama, and here is their monthly on-time percentage rate. If I go back to unemployment, the first thing we'll do is we'll tell you how this data is available. So it's available monthly for the nation and by state. And I'll go down, we're located in Bethesda, Maryland, so I'll select Maryland to look at our unemployment. If I wanted to look at the neighboring state of Virginia, I can invoke a feature called the multi-select, where I hold the control key down and simply click on another state. And here it is, we're looking at Virginia versus Maryland, or I can add the District of Columbia. And this overlay feature is very powerful, and it works just about anywhere in the product, and we'll do some examples of this. If I wanted to look at it hierarchically, again, I hold the control key down, and it should give us Maryland, DC, and Virginia versus the nation. So the national data was started publishing in the late 1940s. In the mid-70s, they started publishing the subnational data, and it goes to current. And if I wanted to export this data, well, first we can show it by toggling this link here. And then here's the data behind this chart. Then I can quickly export to any of these functions. And as I scroll down, we have all the metadata. And these links are hot, so I can click and go directly to the publisher. I can go to where we actually pulled the raw data. Or if the publisher has published technical documentation, or if we publish technical documentation in their behalf, we'll make it available here. And then we generate a citation for you. And one of the requirements to include data into Data Planet is our users have to be able to use it as part of their work product, either in print or online. And what we ask is that you cite us, and so we generate the citation for you here. If we look here on the right, we can create a digital object identifier for any chart that we created. What that is a permanent link to this chart that you're looking at on this day. So 5 years from now, we've updated this monthly. It may have been recast several times, but when a user clicks on this DOI that was generated, we have to be able to get the user back to this particular chart that they were viewing on this day. And that's what we do. And then we'll give you a link that says when the chart was created. To see the most recent version of this chart, click here. Then we'll go further to give you the high-level category, subject category that we index to. We use a control vocabulary to apply index terms, and these are the index terms that were applied for this data set. And clicking on one of these will just fire off a search based on this subject term. And then we'll tell you this is how often this data set gets updated, and here's when it was updated last. So if I wanted to look at national unemployment, and I wanted to compare that to prime rate, I simply hold the control key down again and my multi-select, and I can add data set from another publisher. So here we're looking at monthly unemployment rate from the Bureau of Labor Statistics against a daily prime rate from the Fed. And just by holding the control key down, I can quickly overlay these. And I can see that there's an inverse relationship between the two that's slightly offset. So since the 1940s, when unemployment goes up, a few months later, the prime rate goes down. And that pattern has been in effect for over 60 years. Or if I wanted to look at a metric versus control of the presidency, I could go down into my overlays folder and I can look at Democratic presidents, and then I'm just holding the control key down and adding Republican presidents. So this overlay will work for any data in the tool. It'll work for the overlays as well as any indicator. And then I can click and drag to zoom in. And when I let off, it zooms into my indicator. And so now I can see unemployment historically versus control of the presidency. Or if I wanted to see recessions, I again hold the control key down. And I'll click and drag to zoom in again. And now you can see these gray bars where the National Bureau of Economic Research has determined that the U.S. was in a recession as it relates to unemployment from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and control of the presidency from Dave Leap's Political Atlas. And one thing you'll notice about this chart is whether you're going from Democrat to Republican or Republican to Democrat, when there's been a change in the presidency, there's been a recession, and that pattern is held true back to the 1940s. So let's take a look at some larger databases. So here we're going to banking and finance, and let's look at Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, which has every home loan application taken in the country and what happened to it. Was it originated? If it was originated, what was the rate spread? If it was declined, why was it declined? Then we get into loan types and property types and insuring agencies. And for all of those, we can cut down to the census tract level. We can look at it by lender, purpose of the mortgage, gender, race, and ethnicity. So let's do a ranking by state. And let's look at homes that were declined because of credit history. And so here we have a simple ranking of loans that were declined because of credit history by state, or if I wanted to see it by gender, again, I'll select male, and then I'll hold my control key down to invoke my multi-select. And now our chart is a ranking by state, by gender of loans that were declined because of credit history. And again, the multi-select, if I wanted to continue to add by race or by a particular lender, I can easily do that. Or if I wanted to drill down into county, again, I'll select my home state of Maryland. And so here we have all the counties in Maryland listed by gender, and by default, we'll rank by whatever you have selected here in the type. So here we've got county selected, so we're ranking by county, but then you get this pop-up here, which is really powerful, and it will allow you to rank by any of the variables available. So let's look at lender. So here we'll give you a ranking of all of the loans that were declined because of credit history by lenders in Montgomery County, Maryland. If we want to go into criminal justice, we have, let's drill into uniform crime reporting. We have arrest by age and gender and by race, or we have crimes reported. So let's do a trend of crimes reported in the state of Maryland. Or if I wanted to drill in by type of crime, let's say I'm looking at burglaries, and we'll look at burglaries in the neighboring county of Prince George's County. Or if I wanted to drill down further, it'll give you a list of all the law enforcement agencies that make arrests in Prince George's County by type of arrest. Or if I wanted to see arrest for burglaries made on the campus of University of Maryland College Park, I can simply select it here, and here's our trend. Let's have a little fun here. Let's do a ranking by state, and we'll look at auto thefts. And here we have a ranking by state of automobile thefts reported in California. This may be a little bit misleading because they just have so many people. So let's add to this registered vehicles from Department of Transportation. So now I've got, and I drag my mouse over, and it will give me the indicator name and the value, but I can see that I have the number of crimes or automobiles reported stolen from Department of Transportation, and the number of automobiles registered from, I'm sorry, we have registered from Department of Transportation and the number of automobiles reported stolen from FBI. Or if I show my data here, we can see what these actual numbers look like. Then I can use this neat calculator feature to calculate a new metric. And this will work across any data set, across any publisher. And so I'll look at the number of automobiles reported stolen from the FBI divided by the number of automobiles registered. And looking at the ranges of these numbers, let's do it per 1,000 cars registered. And we'll give it a couple of decimals. We can change the color. And we'll give it a name. Car stolen versus cars registered. And I'll save it to my chart. And you'll see the new chart here. And these checkboxes here determine what gets plotted. So I'm going to turn off all of these except for my new metric that I've created. And I can click on the column heading here to sort. And so here we have the number of automobiles stolen per 1,000 cars registered from 2 different publishers. And we can see that California still leads the country, but this is probably a much more usable chart. Let's go back to criminal justice for a second. And one thing to note here, when we load a data set, we will almost never remove it unless the publisher requests us to. So here we've got an example of data that was published and the publisher discontinued the publishing of it. And so you'll see this archive behind it telling it that it's no longer updated, but it is still available. So if I wanted to see a trend of sentences commuted for the country, and let's hide this data here. And if I look back historically, I can see, 7, 8, 9, 8, and then we have this guy here. And what I've done is I double click on it to invoke a feature called What Happened Here. So we know that you're looking at commuted sentences on death row. When you click on this point, we know that you're looking at 2003. And what we'll do is a Yahoo search for death row inmates whose sentences were commuted in 2003. And so it pulls up all of the data about Governor Ryan, where on his last day of office, he commuted everyone's sentence. So this is just a very quick way to get some context behind all of these numbers that we have. And this works terrific for a lot of the stock data and financial data. It really finds very interesting articles as to what's happening with stock. And when you see anomalies in the data, like something like this, it's a good way to try to find out what caused this. And let's do a search here. When you search in this box here, it will do a system-wide search. And my search is traffic fatalities, Maryland Civic. So over on the left, we give you facets which you can use to further drill down, or we will allow you to do a mouse over. And if you click on a particular item, we're selecting this, all of the particular variables in the product. So we searched through the metadata and we found the indicator. Then what we've done is search through every combination of every variable to find, you selected Maryland, so we identified that it was a state and selected Maryland. You said Civic, so we found a Honda Civic, and we generate for you a trend of traffic fatalities in the state of Maryland involving Honda Civic. So the search is very, very powerful in that, there's a lot of data here, and it allows you to find, literally that needle in a haystack. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you have enjoyed this introduction to Data Planet.